Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now I've got a couple of new things to show you here, and also I'm going to quickly go over this. China have just landed on Mars. On Friday, in fact, they landed on Mars. We haven't got any pictures as of yet, but we may do in the next few days, get some. If they're anything like the images that we had from the Chang'e 4 moon mission, then they'd be very poor quality and downgraded low quality JPEGs, which are not much good. But I wanted to be proved wrong on that, hopefully. I'm not going to go into this now much, but I will come back to this as soon as we get any images from this thing. I will come back to this next week, early next week, Monday or Tuesday, and show you any updates from this mission. Okay, but this is the Rover Design. It's very similar to the one on the moon, and it's basically a small rover with solar panels that fold out. These fold out, and it's got 6 wheels like the previous rovers on Mars, and it's going to come down this little ramp here, just like the one on the moon, and then drive around and take samples looking for water, apparently. Okay, so I'm not going to go into this now. I will be coming back to this, obviously, very soon. But if it's anything, like I said, if it's anything like the moon mission they sent recently, we'll get a few images, we'll get enough to make 1 or 2 panoramics from, and that may be it. They're not as forthcoming as certain other agencies are, so that would be interesting to see what they come up with. Okay, so that was cool. Now this is from the Curiosity rover, and this is SOL 3112, okay, 3112. And I've got the raw version here. Now this is not a colour image, obviously, this is black and white, and most of the images we get from the Curiosity rover are black and white. But basically we have this mound here. Now this is called Mont Mercou, and as I've been saying for quite a long time now, since sort of last year, I think, middle of last year, about a year ago, I think this mound is artificial, okay? Now we've got a close-up of some of the details around this mound here, and there's been lots and lots of images taken from on top of this, and from in front of it, and from around the other side. We're at the back of this mound now. If I show it from the side here, I've got it here. Now the rover currently is in this area here, but it's already been round this thing and taken images down here from this, what I would call the front end, right? And we got them from the side angle here, but we've also had the rover drive up here onto this mound up here and take images of the mound from there and of the mountain up here from here, which is like a sort of ramp. Now we call it a ramp because I don't think it's a natural rocky outcrop or cliff edge, or whatever they want to call it. They call it Mont Mercou. It's about 25, 30 feet or something high, 27 feet or something like that, I think it is. It's not that big. But obviously a lot of it's buried, and I think it probably goes down quite a long way further than that. But we got loads of sand and rubble, the stuff here, piled up against it. And this is really strange, this mound. And I still think it's artificial, even more so now. Not only because there are weird things around it and on it, like I show here. There's this thing here. So check this out. There will be links to all these things below, by the way. Check this out. Now they've actually obfuscated this. There's a carving of a head here, a large carving of a head on here, and it joins up here. You can clearly see that it's joined to this here. But when we got closer to it, the rover drove round this side here, round to the left, and we saw this from down below, and it didn't resemble anything like this when they got close to it. I think they've deliberately obfuscated this and removed some of this image data, okay? And here it is. This is it from what I would call the front end, or at least that's what I call it. And there's that thing, or at least I think this is it here, but this doesn't resemble it in any way when you see it up close. And there are other angles of this, and in the close-up angles, it's not joined. Whereas on this, you can clearly see that there's a join going from this giant, well, it's not giant, with this large head here, and you can see that it joins to the rock here. Okay, so it's kind of built into it, or carved from it, right? And there's even one that's like a skull here, just in front of it. Now, I've shown this before. Now, if you want to check that out, check the links out for this, and if you follow these links on here, it will take you to that video. It's called the Geiger Coil of Mars, or the Mars Geiger Coil, okay? Named after H.R. Geiger, the artist, okay? So there's some weird stuff going on with that, and I think they're deliberately trying to cover up something here. But I may come back to that. Basically, I've got this other colour version of the Gigapan, and you can see some highly complex detail going on here. And I said many months ago, even before we got close to it, that I thought this was artificial. And we got some highly complex stuff going on in this so-called rock here, which I don't think is rock at all. This is concrete. If you look really carefully, you can see actual parts of the reinforced concrete showing through where the outer layers of concrete or render have cracked and fallen away, okay? And there's a part of it down here you can see. You can actually see a cross section in here, right? It's all about the cross sections. See here? There's a box-like section there and another one here, okay? So this is concrete, and you can actually see parts of the reinforced metal or alloy, whatever it is, in the actual concrete. And what's happened is the actual concrete is softer material and has eroded away, revealing the reinforced structure or mesh, for want of a better word, inside it, okay? Now, you can't see a lot of it here. They've carefully left out a lot of it, which is lower down here. But this is a really nice image, this one, this colour one. SOL 3051. So what I'll do now, I'll show you this one. Now, this is the black and white one, which I've just done. And if you look up here, I've marked it. This is round the edge. Now, the front of the mound is out of shot here. We're at the back end here. And we're looking at the side slope, okay? So we're looking at this area here, okay? Just here and round here, right? That's where all the weird stuff is, along here. And you can see all this weird stuff. And I call it stuff because it's not rock. And when you look at it carefully and objectively, it's obvious that this is not rock, okay? Especially this bit here, okay? It's not rock. This is highly complex concrete with what looks like a mesh, like a wire mesh going through it that's eroded away. And as I said, the softer concrete material has eroded away, leaving some of the mesh behind. And you can see this grid-like structure to it, okay? Now, I've taken clips of this on the actual Gigapan. You can see these up here and down here, actually. We've got that section I just showed you here. You can actually see these cross sections and framework, metal framework here, and there's bits of metal framework sticking up here, right? Now if I show you in here, I've got the same image here, and what I'm going to do is flip it to negative, and that should show up even more, right? Now, first of all, I'll show you in here already, as we're here, we've got this framework, right? Mesh. You can see more down here, look. This is mesh. Wire mesh. It's all broken up, a lot of it. You've got this weird thing here with these weird kind of sections to it. And up here, right? It's mesh. Okay? We've got wire mesh going right through this stuff, holding it together. And it's obviously very, very old and eroded away. And what we're seeing is the inside actual reinforced structure showing, because it's made of a harder material than the concrete and has survived longer. And obviously the concrete's eroded away, revealing it, okay? Now I'll get rid of all that. And what I'm going to do is flip it to negative for you, and some of it may show a bit better. Unfortunately, these images aren't that great, and I'd love to see this up really close, but we may get some really close shots in coming days of this. I'm hoping. Okay, so Flip it to negative, and you can really see this mesh. I mean, look at it. Wire mesh in the rock, or wannabe rock, which is actually concrete, as I've been saying for quite some time now. And I've been going on about concrete on Mars now for quite a number of years. And if you follow the links on the Gigapan, it will take you to one of my videos. Just here, there is somewhere up here, there we are. This is a video I did recently, but which a lot of you would have seen, of course, about the concrete on Mars, and I called it the Rosetta Stone. Now, I initially showed this over a year ago, and if you follow this link here, it will take you to that video here, and it explains this in full. But basically, we have levels of construction. We have internal blocks here, which you can see here. There's one there, another one here, in sections, okay, stuck together. Then we have a rough applied layer of concrete over that. You can even see the tool markings here, diagonal marks where it was tooled, hand tooled, right, applied, like plaster. You could call that mortar, actually. So a layer of mortar. Then we have a coarse layer of render, and then a fine course of render on the outside. So we have 4-level construction: block, mortar, coarse, and fine outer render. Okay? Now, that is proof that there was not only life on Mars, but they were building and making objects out of concrete. Not objects, but structures. And some of the structures, like I'm showing you today, show actual mesh in them as well. So there were different types of concrete construction they were doing, and this shows that they were an advanced culture, not just a primitive culture making things out of mud bricks and rock, okay, and carving animals and things like that, like I've shown. They were an advanced culture, and were using technology to make structures. And there's loads of highly complex stuff going on here, really highly complex and detailed stuff. If you look carefully up here, you can see some of this wire-like mesh showing through. It's all over the place, highly complex. And you can even see it here. Look at this here. You can see the mesh in the actual layers here as it's eroded away and cracked. So this is a dead giveaway, and in fact it totally exposes the fact that we're being gaslit by NASA, and have been for decades and decades, about what's really going on. Now obviously they're not allowed to tell us things. They are gagged, and I've been saying this for many years now, that they are gagged and they're not allowed to tell us. So they just keep on giving us the images and then keep their mouths shut, because that's what they're told to do. Okay, they have to give us the images by law because they're paid for by the American taxpayer, and they are obliged to. But they're not allowed to speak about some of the things in these images. They're maintaining this lie that they're only there to find microbial fossils in some rocks or something or other. Okay, so there was that. So check that out. You really need to look at this up close. There's amazing details in here. Highly complex mesh structure in concrete. SOL 78 Perseverance, Percy SOL 78 MR, mast right. Now there's left and right versions of this. If you go to my main Gigapan page, there's loads of new Perseverance Gigapans. There's about 40 or 50 now. But this is one of the smaller ones. It's only a section. And we have here a Martian head sticking out the sand. The rest of him or her is probably buried in a sitting position. I think a lot of these mounds were burials. They were buried in a sitting position. They would have rocks piled around them, and perhaps rocks even going over the top of them, and then just buried in sand. Fairly primitive burials, a lot of them, although I'm sure there are some more sophisticated ones as well, which I have shown. But in this area, there's lots of mounds, and I think they were just buried in sitting position, mummified, naturally mummified, just left there. The sand would suck all the moisture out of them. Very simple meme I've done here. Here's the raw clip here. You can see what it is, even in the raw clip. And there's the enhanced version. I'm just going to point out the details. Crazy lip detail. Let's get in a bit closer, actually. Right. Not that close. Let's go back a bit. There we are. Go too close, it just blurs. You've got eye here, another eye here, nose here, with flared nostrils, and the contorted lip. Contorted lips are a sign of mummification, where the flesh has dried out and become dehydrated and desiccated. Right? That's the chin. Looks like he's got a beard or something, or this may be an object in front. There's a couple of things in front here which are obscuring it, like little pebbles or something. So I'm not sure about that. You've got an ear, not very clear, but there's an ear there with inner detail as well. And that's it. I mean, that's what it is. It's a person. Now, how big is it? I would say this is twice the size of a human skull, possibly bigger. Some of the humanoid and quasi-humanoid skulls that I've shown are quite large. There's lots of little ones around as well, which look like animal skulls, like apes and other things like other creatures that we don't really understand. But basically, if we look at it on here, this is a long way from the rover, right? The rover's right down here, okay? It's not even directly below this, it's right down over here. When it took this is about somewhere between 60 and 100 feet away. Maybe 70, 75, something like that. It's a long way off. And we're still seeing it in quite large detail here. So I would say this is at least twice the size of a human skull or head, which would make it around about 16 to 18 inches high. That's big. That's really big. Now, if you double the height of a skull, you're also doubling the width, effectively, which means it's 4 times the size. So the cranial capacity would be approximately around 4 to 5 times the size of a human skull, if it's twice the height. That's how the proportions work. That's big. And it's the same sort of size as some of the other ones that I've shown recently in this area. So there were large people here, right? Now, this may only be half as big again as a human skull, but it is bigger than a human skull. Human skulls are actually quite small in comparison. They're not big at all. 8 or 9 inches from the chin to the top of the head, depending on whether you're male or female or whatever. There are variations in that. Some people have slightly bigger, some smaller. That's normal variation on Earth. But these are big. They're not small people. There are smaller ones, or were, especially in Jezero Crater. I found remains of quite small ones, and other researchers have as well. And they were like about 2 feet tall, or less. So some crazy stuff going on here. Now, this looks in pretty good condition. It doesn't look that old. But as I've said before, the problem is, we're told by NASA that the atmosphere sort of died and the planet died billions of years ago, or many, many millions of years ago, okay? They can't seem to work out exactly. They don't have a clue, actually. Or they probably do have a clue and they're just lying to us. This is I would say, less than 100 years old, but may have been buried until quite recently. So this may have only been exposed recently, because it could have been buried in sand, and the sand's just blown away, right? And we have seen dust devils in this area already in the last month or so since it's been there. So how old is it? Now, it could be anything up to 20 or 30,000 years old, because the point is there's such little moisture, and it's very cold on Mars, although it does get warm during the day. But most of the time it's way below freezing. And these things, what I think happened was that there was obviously an explosion. It was seen in 1941. Now that's 80 years ago, okay? 80 years ago. It was seen by Dr. Clyde Tombaugh, famous astronomer. Okay, he saw a massive green explosion on Mars through his telescope in 1941. So that's probably when it happened. There were other cataclysms and probably a nuclear war further back than that. But he saw what looked like a massive nuclear explosion in 1941, so it could have been then. And incidentally, I have done videos on this, but the information that I got on my video about this, called Mars Explosion 1941, the information I got from Wikipedia has now been edited out and removed, some of it, okay? But I have a record of it on that video, an important record of what Clyde Tombaugh said to the American military about this explosion he saw on Mars. He discussed it with top generals in the US military in the mid-40s during World War II, and told them basically that he saw a massive green explosion, and that's the colour of a nuclear explosion, is green, okay? Bright green, massive, huge explosion. And this may explain why some of these look so fresh, is because they're not thousands of years old, they're less than 100 years old, right? And the conditions have preserved them, and they've been mummified in the sand. They were probably buried. But what may have happened if the atmosphere was destroyed then, or largely destroyed, what would have happened was anyone walking around or doing stuff would have become frozen, that wasn't completely incinerated by the explosion. On other parts of Mars, they would have had a very, very massive temperature drop as the whole would have been blown in the atmosphere. The atmosphere would have been super cooled extremely quickly, and these people and animals and things on the surface were probably blast frozen. In other words, they were doing a massive drop in temperature, extremely massive drop in temperature, going down to sort of minus 80 or something, or minus 120 or 150 in a matter of seconds. And anything walking around or living on the surface would have been blast frozen. In other words, frozen instantly. Frozen solid, okay? Which may explain why some of these things look so fresh. They were blast frozen and then mummified in the sand, which is full of salt and minerals, and bicarbonate minerals and sulfur and everything else. Perfect preservatives. So they could last for many, many thousands of years. We have seals in Antarctica that have been found, dead seals that are over 6,000 years old, and they're perfectly preserved and still have eye detail, okay? Now, if that can happen on Earth, then it would probably happen on Mars, but for much longer periods. You would probably get preservation lasting for 3 times that. That would take it up to about 20,000 years, 18 or 20,000, possibly much longer. But I don't think much longer than that, because the wind would erode this stuff away. It would all become highly eroded, unless it was covered up with sand, of course, and buried. So this person was either buried and has become uncovered by the wind, or was taken out in that blast and frozen, wasn't destroyed by the actual blast itself, but frozen solid, blast frozen, in the immediate aftermath of a massive cataclysm like that, okay? Or a massive explosion. So there we are. Who knows? But that's the theory. There are theories like that, similar on Earth, where when the dinosaurs were wiped out, if there was a big asteroid or a big meteor strike, it would have destroyed the atmosphere temporarily and frozen everything solid, and anything on the ground would have just blast frozen. We have found remains of woolly mammoths, blast frozen, in a standing position, not even lying down. So some of these people may have been frozen while they were walking around, or just sat around doing something, or just sat, who knows what they were doing. So this is crazy stuff. And the level of detail isn't brilliant on this because it's quite a long way off. But if it was human size, we wouldn't see anywhere near this much detail. But so it must be much bigger. It must be at least double the size. And there it is. A humanoid skull in Jezero Crater. One of the better examples so far, because we've got ear detail there. And there's the eyebrows and the eyes, nostrils, and crazy sort of lip detail and what look like teeth here. Okay? and either a beard coming down or some object here and here. The rest of him or her is probably just below in the sand. So there we are. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will be doing updates on the Chinese Mars mission if we get any images in the next few days, which I'm sure we will. That would be interesting just to compare them and look at the discrepancies. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please give the thumbs up, it really helps. And please leave a comment or an emoji, that really helps as well. Thanks for watching, I'll see you soon.